Hello. I think we'll get started now. I see a few people kind of still coming through, which is absolutely fine. So I'll just kind of kick off a bit of an introduction. And so for those that don't know me, I'm Sam. I head up the account management team here at Futrli, and I've been here for a couple of years now. And I see some familiar faces on here. I see Paul. Hi, Paul. Emily and Debbie and others as well, Karim and so forth. And yeah, today we're going to be running through Predict, the first and new series. It's going to be all about how to predict. And I know some of you on the call are already using Predict, which is really, really good to see. But we're going to kind of take it back to kind of basics and then work up into some features that have been recently added and kind of walk through as to how we can really use Predict with our clients. Certainly you can see I'm working from home. I do have a little dog as well that likes to go a bit crazy at times. I've told my wife to kind of keep an eye on her or asked her, and so hopefully he doesn't disturb us. Hopefully as well the internet doesn't drop out. If it does, we'll just restart. But so far it hasn't happened, so touch wood doesn't happen this time. And as always, certainly feel free to use the Q&A function in Zoom. I'll probably come to that at the end of the session. We've got the full hour booked out, but we probably won't need the full hour. To be fair, we'll probably need maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. We'll see how we get on. But we'll have the first section of kind of me running through some stuff, and then an open Q&A at the end of it. And we're certainly feel free to ask any question you want. I will also send the recording, so you have all the material that you need following the session. So hopefully it should be a good one. So let me share my screen. We're going to kind of take a look at some slides first, and then we're going to jump into Predict. Great. So hopefully everyone can see this. And yeah, this is the session on how to predict. So Predict is next generation software for financial forecasting software. It really is next gen. We're incredibly excited about it, and I know kind of a few of you on the call are using it with clients to great success. And certainly, it is a powerful tool that we can kind of look to deliver some fantastic work to our clients. But like I said, taking it back a time, we're going to kind of look back to this time when the Zero Marketplace only had a few apps in there. So now certainly it's a very busy place of a few hundred in there. And I was speaking with a few of you on the call about this actually way back when 8 years ago, when maybe in the advisory space, for example, there was only really Advisor and so Futrli Advisor and Spotlight that we could really look to add on to Zero. And certainly what we look to, I suppose, achieve and what has been delivered really well from those clients of mine and Futrli's in general have looked to build out really good top level work for your clients. So management accounts, detailed three-way projections, strategic conversations, and delivering it maybe in a live dashboard and so forth. That's been really good, but certainly it comes to a level where we're unable to roll that out to every single client. For a variety of reasons, but I suppose mainly, say you have a portfolio of a few hundred or however many, you're not going to have the same amount of accountants to deliver that work. So we're not going to be able to deliver that high-end work advisory solution to every single client. And also, those clients might not necessarily be of the size that think they need that service, or maybe they are a bit too small and they can't afford that level of service. So this is kind of where the 90% comes in. So we've got Advisor there on the right-hand side, working really well for that 10% or so. That's what we kind of saw from the market and from our discussions that we've had. Generally, this is the split that we've seen, but certainly there is differences as well. I know that some achieve kind of 40% with Advisor. It really just depends, but certainly what we're trying to get at here is that that traditional way of providing reports and detailed top-tier work only really works with a set kind of number of your clients. But what about everyone else? What about those maybe smaller clients, maybe those clients that don't think they're quite ready for that full advisory offering? The large proportion of your clients, the ones that may be more at risk, what can we do to kind of help with that? So this is where Futrli Predict comes in. So it is next-gen and scalable prediction software for your SMEs. It's a solution that we can then provide to those clients that they can really start to understand the numbers in fantastic detail. They can start to plan correctly. They can protect themselves by using a solution like this. But ultimately, we can then also scale it nicely. So obviously with Advisor, like I said, it's that top tier service, but we can't really scale that to every single client. It's not going to be feasible. But certainly with Predict, it's a solution that is a win-win for both. It does the heavy lifting, allowing us to scale it and give a fantastic solution for those clients at the same time. And let's quickly talk about kind of these two forecasting approaches. So we've got direct forecasting and indirect forecasting. So indirect forecasting, what Advisor is really good at, for example, is taking the profit and loss and balance sheet and predicting out the cash flow off the back of it. It's really good for those long-term strategic conversations, those conversations where we don't want to be looking at invoices. We want to just be looking at the kind of the 3, 4, 5 year approach. And it's really good to build off maybe for companies that have loads of transactions going through. So therefore, the indirect forecasting is a great approach for that requirement. We've also got another way to forecast, which is direct forecasting. So that's using your invoices and bills, tax payments, and those kind of immediate transactions to forecast out. So direct forecasting is arguably better for the short term. So if you're looking at a few months sort of forecasting, where we can really start to see on an accurate kind of daily, weekly, monthly basis what those invoices are doing. But until now, those two kind of ways of forecasting have been separate. But as you can see there, Futrli Predict is the first and only hybrid solution. So by hybrid, we mean that we're combining the direct with the indirect. So we can see there from the graphic there, there's a few examples of what's in the market at the moment. So we've got Advisor there, which I know a lot of you on the call are obviously using to great effect for your indirect. And I mentioned obviously Spotlight earlier as well, being in that market. And we then obviously got the direct. So that's the floats, the fluidlys, and being really good to analyze your cash flow and using off your invoices and bills and so forth. And that has been kind of sufficient arguably, but Predict is able to then use both those approaches and really start to build out an accurate forecast for the clients, because certainly cash is important, but if we're only looking at invoices and bills, how, for example, is VAT handled? It's probably not going to be as accurate as if we looked at a full comprehensive approach and really started to build something that's not just scalable, but also incredibly accurate for your clients. So Predict, we are kind of referring to that, and it is a hybrid solution. So we're going to meet Josie now. And Josie is a company that we got connected up to Predict. So we're going to have a look at Predict now. And it's all around her firm. So she is a florist, as you can see then, looking kind of happily into the flowers that she's packaged up for one of our clients. And we're going to see how Predict really looks for her. So let me stop sharing. I'm then going to open up Predict and we'll take a little look. Cool. So hopefully now, as if by magic, you can now see my Predict account. So when you first log into Predict, we're going to go to the Organizations tab here. This is where you can then click Add New Organization, and we can then connect up one of your clients. So we can then type in the name of the client, we can connect to Predict, connect to Xero or QuickBooks as well, and it'll then sync away. It'll take a couple minutes or so, depending on how big the organization is. And then ultimately, you're going to be left with how many companies you got connected up. So we can then see Josie's florist there. And when we jump into that company, we can see all of this data that's been built out straight away for us. So it is certainly a plug and play solution. It's a solution, like I said, that does the heavy lifting for both yourself and also for the client. We don't need to build out anything for Predict to really take effect. It's not a tool that we need to build out a kind of lengthy management accounts or kind of look through a detailed dashboard, for example. It's not that sort of solution, I suppose. It's a solution that your clients can use quickly and instinctively to react to kind of changes in their business. And to go with that plug and play element, we've got this tutorial here. this tutorial pops up, which I haven't actually completed yet. I need to go through the other points, but it pops up for any other new user that comes in. So then it's a great solution that adds to that scalable kind of approach that we have with Predict, because we can invite your client in and not have to do the hand holding with them. We can effectively give trust in Predict to allow them to understand how to use Predict from going through this little tutorial. So I think certainly that tutorial is a useful one. It's really intuitive. It kind of takes you around the apps and where to go, how to build out your first prediction and so forth. We're going to minimize that because I'm a tutorial, I suppose. I'm going to run through it now. So we've got at the top here, predicted cash. This is your money in the bank for Josie. We can scroll left to have a look at the actuals. And we can go right to have a look at the forecasted figures there. And I suppose because we're looking at this plug and play solution, we've got all these figures in here. So it's worth understanding where these figures have come from. And if we scroll down, we're looking at the accounts here. So these are the accounts on the profit and loss. If we open up wedding sales, we can see in here, Futrli Predicts. So this is the line that Futrli Predict has added in based off all the data in Xero and forecasted out. So by, I mean, all the data in Xero, it's literally looking at every single transaction, every item on the profit and loss and balance sheet, how it's impacting that relevant account, all the journals that it's creating off the back of it, the cash movements, if it's got VAT, looking at the seasonality, the trends, and then being able to zip that all back up using its kind of calculations and algorithms. It's not AI. We've certainly stepped away from that. It's kind of specific accounting calculations. And we can then build out this forecast straight away. But certainly that's really good to start to see that moving forward. But to give extra clarity as to where those numbers have come from, we can click on any of these figures and it will tell us how it's been calculated. So I think, again, another way to give trust in the numbers is to have something like this available, which I think when we're building out a forecast that the system has generated for us, we can have complete clarity and understand where these figures have come from. So we can see that it's applied like a conservative increase, it's identified a kind of a moderate trend and so forth. So without looking at kind of Josie's florist, like I mentioned, and she has 3 different revenue streams. She has wedding sales, she has corporate sales, so selling to kind of business contracts, also shop sales, so people that come into her shop and buy a bunch of flowers kind of firsthand from the general public. So that's a pretty standard and fairly simplistic, I suppose, business. But those 3 different revenue streams obviously add that complexity to it. So that different ways that that client will interact with that end consumer, different credit terms, different agreements, different kind of contracts and so forth. So we can then see those impacting the profit and loss there. But we can then see on the cash impact, so how it's then hitting the bank. So this is where we can now see that combination, that hybrid solution of having the direct element, having the cash movements there, but we can then also see it hitting the activity. I think that's really important because if we then go to the invoices, so this is that direct element. This is now looking at all the invoices that are overdue or due as well in the system, as well as bills, so anything that we're then paying out. And that client can then start to use this in their forecast accordingly. So these are the due dates based off in Xero, for example. But if we then think it's going to be paid at a different date, like some of these have been edited, we can then just change it. So that client can then take action straight away if they know the invoice is going to be maybe a few days later, or it's going to be written off entirely. We can just exclude it. That'll then impact the cash flow accordingly. You can then really start to model it from there. That's given the client the control to really understand their numbers. And if we're then kind of sticking with that control element, we can then go to the home screen, and we can then start to forecast other items in there as well. I'll just minimize that tutorial, I don't want that anymore. We can open up wedding sales and we can see Futrli Predicts here. So we can now add maybe our own prediction to it. So we've got the kind of benchmark, the starting point. But if you know, for example, that we're going to have an extra, maybe an extra client or maybe another employee or whatever it might be, another scenario that you know that we don't, for example, we can then decide to add them in. So we can add them in using one of these methods. So we'll run through all three of them just so we can see exactly how they all work. So go to the freestyle to begin with. I'll just call it freestyle. Click next. And then pop up with a modal in a second. And we can then start to add it in here. So now we can see we've created that line. We've got all these kind of freestyle boxes allowing us to type in whatever we want. So we've got simply numbers to type in for whatever we want. So I'm just going to hit the keyboard and put some numbers in, and we then hit tick. And now we can see that modal up here to tell us when we want that invoice to be kind of stored. So last day of the month by default, 20% tax by default. You can just change that if you need to. Then if we go to the cash impact, we can then see, do we want to hit it on the same day or maybe split payments? So maybe in 30 days, get 100% of the invoice. And obviously you can certainly do multiple. So maybe in 30 days, we want 50%. And then in 90 days, you get the remaining 50%. Then hit update. We'll then see it'll populate as that there. And then you can then certainly toggle between how it's impacting our sales line, but also how it's impacting the bank. And then ultimately as well, we can then use the toggle feature to then toggle between the two. So say, for example, this is a client that's just about to sign this new contract, for example. You can then see the impact. What's that going to actually change to my business if I actually manage to sign that contract or kind of take that employee on or whatever it might be? We can toggle it on and start to see the impact, whether it be straight on that sales line, for example, or we can then jump into the financials. If we go into the financials, for example, we can then see our full profit and loss there, and our balance sheet and our cash flow. We can then start to see how it's impacting the net profit and really jump into those numbers there. We'll go back to this section in a little sec as well. I'm just going to go back to the home screen and we're going to have a look at those other methods. So we've got freestyle. It's the first one so far. I'm going to minimize that. We're going to click on plus and we're going to go repeating. I'm going to call this excitingly repeating. And this will allow me to now put in a regular amount. So rather than just kind of precise amounts each month, we can put in these regular amounts. Let's do 2,000 or 20,000 monthly, or you can change it to be however often you want, daily, weekly. So we are taking data through on a daily basis. So we've got actuals until literally to today, and it's then forecasting out from that. It's spotting all those individual elements and forecasting it out. So we can forecast as precise daily, and you can repeat it as often as you need to. We can then have the change the start date if you need to. When it's going to end, we can have an increase. So you can increase each month by a certain percentage, for example. We then again got the default VAT rate applied there, which you can change if you want to. Then again, we've got the cash impact. So if we've got it on same day, or if you want to again split it. This time I'm just going to leave it as same day, click update, and then see it appear there in a sec, like that. Then finally, we've then got unit-based. This is a really cool one where we can start to forecast off units. So maybe bunches of flowers, for example, for Josie. So let's say a bunch of flowers is going to cost £10 that she's just going to now bring into her offering. She's going to sell 150 of them, maybe a month. So lots of flowers. It's going to repeat monthly this, and we're going to maybe just end it after the 30th because maybe she's going to have a price change. Maybe it's going to be £12. Then we're going to sell maybe 150 again. And that's just going to keep going on forever. You can keep adding on price changes. We can have monthly growth or refunds and so forth, simply as precise as your client wants to go. Because this is something they're going to be driving and be able to kind of plan alongside their accountant. And again, as always, we've got the cash impact. Because certainly cash is important, but we really need that full approach to ensure that we're giving an accurate and comprehensive approach to those clients. And then hit update. And we can see it populate once again down there. And as before, obviously, you can toggle on as many as you need to and really use that in the client to plan and your conversations that you might have with the client and see how that's going to impact the company. So that's those elements. We've then got just a cool area I want to check, which I'll show you rather, is the settings. So one of the most glamorous, but in the settings is where you then put in the defaults, which is all populated for you, but you can then change it accordingly. And literally as of today, which is kind of good timing for today's chat, is the fact that we've now got cash-based VAT scheme available. This is really exciting. Literally, I was only told this about an hour ago that we've now got cash-based VAT. So you can simply set it however you need to. So maybe for your smaller clients, or clients that are on that cash-based scheme, we can add that in there. So certainly we're just listening to feedback all the time and trying to kind of use that and develop as much as we certainly can do so. So hopefully for those of you who've got Predict in play already, that could be maybe a good one for clients that are on the cash scheme, but certainly also ones that maybe are looking at Predict as a solution for those cash-based scheme clients. Certainly jump in and see how that can affect it, because again, having VAT accurate, not just looking at last month and putting it forward, we need to ensure that data is reliable in these kind of such tricky times and unprecedented kind of worldwide climate we find ourselves in. So having the taxes set up accurately, having them set up on the correct scheme, on the correct period, just ensures that that client is going to be planning using the right tools, really. And then if we're sticking with the VAT element, if we go to the financials, and I did say that we'd return back in, we go to the balance sheet, we can then see our predicted VAT here. So we've got a deferred VAT payment, which I've just deferred the whole amount, as you can see there. But this amount here will just accumulate over time, every single day, to ensure that your client can stay on top of the numbers. So again, I think VAT and all the taxes that a business might go through are always important in this day and age, and that ability to stay on top of it, plan for it accordingly, then also we just quite easily defer it if need be. If we didn't defer it, for example, we'll just see that figure up there, and it will then kind of build up over time, as we said then. And ultimately, because I've now not deferred it, we can see all the figures have changed. Well, obviously that's now going to impact our kind of cash movements and so forth. I suppose on the cash movements, we can then go to the cash flow tab, and we can see all this here. We've got all this in the, I suppose the traditional layout of the financials, the profit and loss and balance sheet and cash flow. We can open up any of the items. We can then start to also forecast in this area as well, if you want to. So because we're building off the balance sheet, we've got those extra areas to have that comprehensive approach, which you can do on the balance sheet side as well. So certainly, I suppose you can just use Predict however you want, whether or not you're going to be forecasting from the financial side or on the home screen. I think personally for myself, I think the home screen has got a really nice kind of way of building out forecast. But if you want to be kind of further deep diving into the mechanics of Predict and doing balance sheet movements and so forth, and this is where we'll obviously need to come. And then as always, if we've got a massive chart of accounts, so let's say how many we've got in here, we've got only a few expenses, so probably not too relevant for Josie. But if you've got certainly clients which have got maybe 50 different expense codes, we can reorder them, we can drag and drop, we can put into groups and so forth. So I think, again, that's just important for a client that wants to stay organized, really. So yeah, pretty, I suppose, in a way, boring way of setting up Predict, but it's certainly useful to have a clear way of managing those accounts and putting that forward. And that's pretty much Predict, really. So we certainly see it as a tool, like I said, to provide that 90%, because as I mentioned in the notes, I suppose, of the webinar, the way that this works with Advisor is that we've got Advisor in play for that top 10% of your clients. So those clients that need the management accounts, want that detailed strategic conversation on a monthly, quarterly basis and so forth. But then we've then got Predict to satisfy that 90%, but also to be given in addition to maybe those 10%, because they can then use it to navigate themselves in between the meetings. Because this is the tool that they can use themselves. They can really start to stay on top of what's around the corner. Really use it as early warning system, because certainly we know that the cost of losing a client and the cost of acquisition is huge. So if we can give a tool that is going to really protect them, make them remain healthy, so they can start to plan correctly and use it over these tricky kind of few months ahead, then this is a fantastic way of doing that, I suppose. And ultimately also opens up extra opportunities because the client that you're going to be speaking with is going to be more informed in their business, more aware of what's going on, and that hopefully just be a good thing in our advisory discussion, having that relationship with the client and understanding kind of really what they want. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover. So we've gone through it in 26 minutes. I said it will be less than an hour, but I see a few questions come through. So certainly feel free to use the Q&A box if you have any kind of burning questions. And we can certainly kind of cover that now. So now is your chance, use the Q&A. Like I said, I'll send the recording so you have all the material that you would need, but certainly kind of use the Q&A to ask any questions. One question that's come through literally now in the chat, actually, I can see from Karim, is any link to pictorial graphs? So obviously you've got the chart at the top showing our kind of predicted cash. And at the moment, we don't have like an export function. However, really close or really soon, we're going to be having an export function. So we've got a public roadmap for Predict, which I'll certainly put in the follow-up email actually. And you'll see on there that we've got the export function coming. So from there, you can then take it out and use it however you want to. But it's worthy to note, though, that we see Predict as not a reporting tool. It's not a tool to build out kind of huge packs and things for. It's a sat nav to be used in between those meetings. So certainly we will be able to take information out and do what we need to, but it's a tool to be used in tandem with a solution like that, if that makes sense. And another question that's come in just before Karim's were in the Q&A function was, how much does it cost? So in regards to Predict, we've kind of stepped away from doing like package partner deals. It's simply on a client by client basis. We do have an early bird discount for accountants, which is technically expired last month, but it's been extended ever so slightly, and so that's expiring soon. That is a 50% off discount, and once it's applied, it then applies for the full 12 months of any client you connect up. So it's kind of locked in, which is really good. And that then makes each client you connect up $49.50. So it's charged in dollars, but for, I know we've got quite a few of English friends on the call, that's about 35 or so pounds per client. So therefore, yeah, just a client by client basis, and certainly you can kind of lock in as many as required. So we can go with 5, for example, and then look to scale it over the coming months. And it'll probably be myself really that you'll be speaking with. So I'm kind of taking the lead on the Predict rollout, of which I've had some conversations with someone on the call already. So certainly, yeah, we'll be working with you to engage with that 90% as much as you need to. A couple of the questions come through from Karim, not similar to advisory. I'm not sure exactly the question there. I presume you mean not similar to advisor, the product. Obviously, they're two different products for two different needs. Minimum number of clients, there isn't a minimum number, but if we have certainly kind of a good bank on it, then it could be a discussion as to what we can do to help kind of with that initial kind of purchase, as it were. So certainly, I suppose the main thing is just get in touch with myself. You'll have my details, your account manager. If not, we'll certainly be happy to help, and we can work through the strategy behind the clients you want to get on board and where we want to take that. We've got a question here from Paul. Thanks, Paul, in the chat. Are the capabilities for this to then link in with dashboard tools such as Power BI to allow for dashboard creation if you want to create reports? So at the moment, no, we don't have an API to link with solutions like that. As a Power BI is probably going to be in the same sort of field, as it were, for advisor, but certainly I suppose it kind of depends on where that conversation is going to lead. It might be worth taking that offline and then seeing what could be done. But I know that at the moment it's a standalone product, that we have integrations with sources, but Power BI I don't think is one that we're considering at the moment, but I'll certainly be happy to follow that up. Grim's asked for my contact details. You will get my contact details in the email that I send out in about half an hour or so's time. I'll send it out from kind of the account management email. You could simply just reply to that and it will come to me. So you'll be able to kind of get my details, you get the recording, get everything that we talked about, and we'll take it from there. So I think that's everything that has come through for today. So I will wrap up. Normally, if I wrap up, someone asks another question. So when that does come through, and feel free to keep asking. There we are, another one. Is this separate from Advisor? Yes, it is, Krim. It's a separate product, separate login. Obviously, still Futrli. Still one line of communication with Futrli and your account manager. But certainly, we see Advisor as a tool to be used by the accountant. Predict to be used by the client with the accountant. That's kind of where the distinct difference, I suppose, is. So yeah, separate login, but still Futrli, still accessed by our website. So yeah, take a look on that. But I will, like I said, send out the follow-up email with the recording, with the roadmap on there as well, which you can certainly vote for different features and things. And hopefully you found that useful. And for those that are new to Predict, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. So certainly give me a shout, whether you're using Predict or not, or planning to. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. So cool, we've got 28 minutes left back in your day. So hopefully you can use that well. The sun is out, it's not raining just yet. So hope you have a good evening. Thanks a lot. Cheers everyone, thanks a lot.